After we moved into the wood line about 200 meters, we received contact to our 3 o'clock. The squad leader was paralyzed. Our fire was weak, and we had no momentum. The RI was screaming at the squad leader the entire time, trying to get him to do something. I tried to get my team online and start bounding towards the enemy. Bravo team started to flank, but didn't tell anyone. It was chaos. Hey everyone, welcome back to my Ranger School adventure, where I am going through every day of my journey through the U.S. Army's Ranger School. In the previous video, I went through how I passed the Ranger assessment phase. I won't go through a full recap here, but if you haven't seen it, you can go here and watch it. I make these videos pretty sporadically, so if you're interested in following this story, please subscribe and hit the notification button so you don't miss a video. Today, I'll be covering the first few phases of the Darby phase. At Camp Darby, I learned more than I ever wanted to know about squad tactics and op-ord riding. My squad had 16 Rangers. Almost every single day looked the same. We woke up early, ate an MRE, completed the troop leading procedures, conducted PCCs and PCIs, and then executed the patrol. The phase was split up into 3 blocks. The first block is Cadre-led sticks, where an RI was with us almost the whole time, helping us write the op order and pitch it, like how to give it with confidence. Our patrols were much shorter in length, and we conducted an AAR, an after-action review, after every mission. The second block was Cadre-assisted sticks, where the RIs only assisted us in the mission and no grades were given. And finally, the graded patrols, which were just like the Cadre-led sticks, except the patrols were graded. There were still AARs after every op-ord and every mission, but the RIs gave no indication as to whether someone passed or failed the patrols. Later in another video, I'll discuss how you're kind of able to guess whether or not you got to go based on the feedback that you get during the mission. Now, the only missions that we did in the Darby phase were ambushes and reconnaissance patrols. Now, I didn't record exactly every single event or every single event of every day, because the days are all literally exactly the same. So what I do is basically tell a bunch of stories from a bunch of different days to give you a really good idea about what does every one of these days look like. Okay, we finished the 12-mile ruck march around midnight and conducted a layout. We loaded buses and headed out to Camp Darby, and this is after just finishing the 12-mile road march, so we're picking up right where we left off. The time we got to Camp Darby was about 0100. I scanned the camp trying to get a feel for the layout. We were told the camp rules, conducted some quick hygiene, and I laid out our sleeping mats and sleeping bags on the rocks outside the main Cadre building, and we went to sleep about 0145. We woke up around 0430. We were given some classes and headed out to the drop zone for classes on demolition. We were taught how to put together a basic demolition charge and how to employ it. We would have to do this during the sticks lanes to blow up Op4's notional equipment. We put together a charge and blew it up. It was pretty sweet. After the demolition classes, we headed over to the fabled Darby Queen obstacle course. My partner was none other than Drill Sergeant Donnie from the previous video. That day was not our day for obstacle courses. We both just sucked. He would screw something up and we'd get smoked and have to redo the obstacle. And then I would screw something up and we would get smoked and have to redo the obstacle. We started near the front of the line, but we finished dead last. We both just laughed. It was also at the Darby Queen where I earned a scar that I will have for the rest of my life. And you can't really see it, but it's right there. During the rope descent, Ranger students were taking forever. And this obstacle begins with a long climb to a really high platform with a rope attached to it. The rope runs from the top of the platform down to a pole at about a 45-degree angle. Students have to get on the rope and then figure out how to get to the bottom. Most were timid and just climbed down hand over hand, and this was taking forever, so I decided to show them up. I pulled my sleeves up over my wrist, locked my hands together over the rope with my body under it, and then I just let go of the platform and just slid down the rope. So I got this deep gash right here, and it was bleeding and oozing liquid. Really hurt, but oops. I also decided to show off on the buddy team confidence tower. This obstacle is just a series of platforms, one right above the other, with about a 5-foot gap in between. It's awkward because you have to stand on one side of the platform and try to climb to the next platform, which is directly above you. One technique, which everyone was afraid to try, is called the ranger roll method. Basically, you stand on the lower platform, you grasp the edge of the platform above you with a pull-up grip, like this, and then you pull yourself up while you swing your legs up over your head. It looks really cool when it's done correctly, but I had only seen this technique used and had never attempted it. I helped Donnie up to the platform above us, and then I tried to ranger roll. As it turns out, it's actually really easy. It's like way easier than trying to do it the normal way, which is just like climb up. Another highlight of the Darby Queen was the balance walk, where the RIs instructed each of us to sing a song as we negotiated the obstacle. And the most popular choice, of course, was Don't Stop Believing by Journey. So it was a very popular choice. That day, we got split up into squads and platoons. Chad and I were in the same squad, which was dope. We were really good friends. This would prove crucial for both of us. That night, it rained, and a bunch of people quit. And I'm like, y'all just got here. Quitting right now because of a little rain? As it poured down, we had to pack our rucks with the equipment we would need for the next few days while our duffel bags were put into a shed. So you bring a whole bunch of stuff to Ranger School. You bring your rucksack, you bring a salt pack, you bring a bunch of duffel bags. So you don't keep all your stuff with you the whole time when you get out to Darby. You have your rucksack, which is what you're living out of, and then you have a bunch of stuff in your duffel bags, and you put those in a shed, and you're only able to get in there every once in a while to go through your duffel bag and get a bunch of stuff out. We were also shown to our planning bay. A planning bay at Darby is nothing more than a 3-walled structure with a roof. And the walls are covered with whiteboards. And this is where your squad lives. You know, you sleep in and around it. You use the whiteboards to plan your mission. There's also a terrain model kit in there, like a sand table. So you do everything in there. All right, so that was the end of day 1, which is the demolition classes and the Darby Queen. All right, day 2 of the Darby phase. This one's really short. This day was just the basic airborne refresher and classes to write operations orders. We got very little sleep. I won't go into any of the details about the op ord classes or the tactics classes. There's a couple already here on YouTube, but you're going to learn everything when you get there anyway. And you're not going to soon forget it. They really drill it into your head. That night, we only got a few hours of sleep, a trend that would continue for the rest of the phase. We got 3 hours of sleep at night. If we got 3 hours of sleep at night, that was very good. 2 hours was pretty standard, and less than an hour was pretty miserable. This is the Darby phase, days 3 through 5, which is Cadre-led sticks. We woke up at 04:30 and prepared for the day by packing our rucksacks, cleaning our weapons, and trying to stay warm by the burn barrel. At Camp Darby during the winter months, Ranger students were allowed to collect their own firewood and make warming fires inside the designated burn barrels. The fires are also crucial for drying out equipment that gets wet when we waded into Hollis Creek. We'll talk about that in another story. The RI came down at about 0500 to give us the op order and help us through the planning process. The first couple of days were Cadre-led. The next couple of days were Cadre-assisted. And then there were 10 days of graded patrols. On the Cadre-led days, The RI pitched the warning order and the opward brief, and then walked us step by step through the mission. There's not much to say about those days, except they were long and frustrating. All the missions were within walking distance of Camp Darby. We would usually conduct 2 to 3 smaller missions per day. The AARs were long and detailed. On the final day of Cadre-led sticks, our execution had been terrible. The RI conducted the AAR, and then he said that he wanted us to take the next 30 minutes to just talk amongst ourselves and figure out what was wrong with us and how we were going to improve. That was a very crucial 30 minutes. Instead of critiquing each other, each person talked about where they thought they could personally improve and help the team. When the RI came back, we all felt pretty good about moving forward as a team. Darby phase, days 6 through 8. And then this is the Cadre assisted sticks. The first day of Cadre assisted sticks, I was assigned as the Alpha team leader. This is a good story. My duties during planning were mainly the route plan and the terrain model. During the mission, I was in charge of en-route navigation and frontal security. During the Darby phase, the planning process is extremely detailed. The entire squad is responsible for helping to prepare the warno and opward. The squad leader just directs everyone and pitches the order. It takes about an hour to write a warnord, 30 minutes to pitch it, and over 3 hours to write an opward, and about 2.5 hours to brief that. It takes a lot of time. The concept of the operation itself takes about 45 minutes to an hour to brief. If we spent less than that, there was a really good chance that you were going to get a no-go because of the amount of detail you have to put into your plan. On every patrol at Ranger School, the only grades are go and no-go. You needed to get a go. You needed to get one go in a phase in order to advance to the next phase, and you needed at least 50% go rate overall to graduate the course. At Darby, the only graded positions are squad leader, alpha team leader, and bravo team leader. Everyone else is just part of the squad waiting for their turn to be in charge. Okay, I'm going to give you a very quick idea of how detailed these op orders are at Darby, or how detailed they were. I don't think it's changed that much since I've been there, but here's a brief example. Okay, once we travel 1,000 meters at a 300-degree azimuth, I will signal a halt. I will do this by raising my arm in the air and forming a 90-degree angle with my bicep and my forearm, with my fingers extended and joined. All members of the squad will mimic this motion, then move into the short halt position. The short halt means that Rangers will move to the closest, covered and concealed position to take a knee and face out. The machine gun team will move to the 12 o'clock or cover the most likely enemy avenue of approach. As soon as we halt, the RTO will pull out the GPS and get an accurate grid location. The team leaders will then travel around the formation in a clockwise direction, assigning sectors of fire and ensuring that we have 360-degree security with interlocking sectors of fire at 35 meters. And it just goes on and on. And I imagine going through the entire mission in that level of detail, talking exactly how people will move around the formation, exactly who they're going to check and what they're going to check and how they're going to check them, and how you're going to occupy the ORP. I mean, that's why these briefs take so freaking long. I'm not going to read all the paragraphs here. I literally wrote like 6 or 7 full paragraphs, and I wrote them straight from memory. And that's how ingrained it gets in your brain. The good thing is that no one is expected to arrive at Ranger School with that knowledge. Everything is taught as if no student has ever seen that material before. If you go to iBullock, you'll get exposed to pretty good opward writing, but it's not anything like you'll do at Ranger School. From writing opwards to moving in a squad formation to hand and arm signals, everything is taught from square one. Anyway, back to the story. My terrain model, remember, we're going back. I'm the alpha team leader for our first Cadre assisted patrol. So there's no grades being given out, but we really need to be on our game to get ready because we only have 3 days of this, and then we're going straight into graded patrols. Okay, so I was responsible for the terrain model, and my terrain model was terrible. and my route plan was shaky at best. If it had been an actual graded lane, I almost certainly would have gotten a no-go and caused the squad leader to get a no-go. Your buddies are so important to helping you get a go, whether you're a team leader or squad leader. You have to rely completely on the squad during the planning process to write the op boards and to help with getting equipment ready and setting up the sand table. It really is a team effort. And the RIs say it all the time. The squad will determine whether or not the squad leader gets a go or not. And that is true to some extent. But the squad leader always has to give clear and concise guidance. So the squad leader, you're not going to get a go without your squad, but you can mess it up by yourself. So you can get a no-go without that. Even if your squad tries to help you as a squad leader, you can still get a no-go. After the planning process, which was painful to say the least, the RI gave us an hour-long AAR and basically tore us apart. It was shaping up to be a very long day. At about noon, we scarfed down our MRE and conducted some brief rehearsals before loading the truck at 1300. The truck rides at Darby were always uncomfortable because they made us wear the rucksack on our back instead of taking them off and stacking them, or even wearing them on the front. We got to the drop-off point at the T intersection of Highway 137 and Cyclone Road. Can still remember it to this day. We dismounted and moved into the tree line. It was there that we discovered that our patrol was going to be watched, then none other than Colonel King, the commander of the Ranger Training Brigade, the guy in charge of all of Ranger School. After we moved into the wood line about 200 meters, we received contact to our 3 o'clock. The squad leader was paralyzed. Our fire was weak, and we had no momentum. The RI was screaming at the squad leader the entire time, trying to get him to do something. I tried to get my team online and start bounding towards the enemy. Bravo team started to flank, but didn't tell anyone. It was chaos, and the Op 4 got away. The RI sat us all down and gave us an AAR. Again, he ripped us apart. The colonel gave us some other tips and this is Ranger School, and if you don't like it, quit now because it only gets harder speech. The same one that we got at least once a week throughout the entire course. Once that was finished, we started back towards our objective when we took indirect fire. During every mission in Darby, our squad took contact en route to the objective and then indirect fire shortly after. This wasn't to torture us, but it was so the RI can grade the squad leader and team leader on these different tasks before changing out the leadership. The first set of leaders is graded on planning, rehearsals, react to contact, react to indirect fire, and movement. Once the first set of leadership reaches the security halt, the RI would announce who the new team leaders and the new squad leader were. The second set of leaders was graded on occupation of the ORP, leaders recon, actions on the objective, movement to the link up, and then the link up itself, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. After we took the indirect fire during this patrol, all we had to do was get to the security halt. This would have been easy, except there were a lot of open danger areas, which are just big areas, big open areas like fields that were not listed on the map. I kept trying to move south to box around them. And remember, I'm in charge of en route navigation. So I try to box around these things to the south, trying not to get us too far off course. It wasn't like our OTC where we could just move across open fields. We had to stay stealthy the whole time, and that meant staying in the wood line. After crossing Hollis Creek and getting wet up to our knees, we moved all the way to the southern boundary of the course, where I discovered that I was at the corner of the boundary, which I could not cross, and a very large open danger area, which again was not on the map, which we couldn't go across either, so we were kind of stuck. The RI was furious with me. Yeah, we were in a terrible spot. We couldn't get to the security halt position without moving out of bounds of the lane or moving across an open field. I want to reiterate, none of this was on the map. So it's like, how was I supposed to know this was here? But anyway, the RI knew that we were losing daylight and there was not going to be time to go all the way back around the danger area, all the way to the other side. So he made us do a dead sprint across the open field to the security halt position. Once we got there, I was relieved when a new team leader was put in my place. I was also relieved that it was just practice, and these patrols weren't graded yet. but I really needed to step it up if I was going to make it out of Darby. Some notes during the movement. I was moving way too fast. The squad leader had to keep telling me to slow down. My team was always either too bunched up or too spread out, and hand and arm signals were not being relayed properly. When we reached a danger area, I always tried to box around it instead of calling up the squad leader and asking for guidance. These were important lessons learned. After the leadership change, we occupied the ORP. The RI wanted the recon team to conduct the recon, while the others, who would normally just sit and wait in the ORP, he wanted them to move on to the objective and then observe to see if they could see the Rangers that were doing the recon. I was on the recon team, which translated to me and another Ranger student named James getting about an hour of sleep, which was nice. We just kind of fell asleep, which you're not supposed to do. Though we couldn't help it. We just fell asleep. The squad leader put us into a position where we supposedly could see the objective, and he just told us to wait for him there. So we didn't get any recon guidance. He just kind of like put us in a spot, and we fell asleep. They came back and got us, and then we moved to the objective after the AAR, or for the AAR. After we all got our rucksacks from the ORP, we laid out all of our sensitive items, which was standard. The sensitive items layout was always conducted after actions on the objective, and again, once we arrived back at Camp Darby. Usually after actions on the objective, the layout was conducted on a road. The squad formed 2 lines, Alpha team on one side, Bravo team on the other side. Everyone would pull out their sensitive items. The RIs would call off an item, and whoever had it would stand up and shine a light on it, because it's always dark during these things. Once the RI counts it, the Ranger takes a knee. Once everything was checked, we would find any lost items, which luckily only happened once. The RI would then do a detailed AAR. They would make us pass around a chem light, because remember, it's dark, so they'd crack a chem light, and then they'd make us pass that around to make sure no one was falling asleep. Once we finished the AAR, they would make us pass around the whole time, like while we were doing the AAR, to make sure no one fell asleep. Once we finished the AAR, we had to move about 2 kilometers to the link-up site. Movement at night, where only some of the people had night vision, was very tough. But throughout the entire phase, we never lost a single Ranger student. That night, movement was horrible. I got caught in really bad thorns, and I got attacked by fire ants. I was so tired that I was convinced that they weren't ants. I kept trying to tell my buddy, who was trying to get them off me, that they were some kind of weird bug. He kept saying, dude, they're definitely ants. You never know when you are going to be gone mentally and your buddy is going to be awake. When you are awake and energetic, you have to watch your buddies. And when you're tired, they will help you out. This is really important. This was really important when we got to Florida, which we have many videos between now and Florida. But when we get there, you'll see just how bad it can be when you get very little sleep. We occupied a security position about 150 meters short of the link-up site and waited for the truck to arrive. The link-up, when I went, was a graded activity. I'm not going to go through the entire process here, but there was a very specific exchange that had to happen, but I'm not sure if they still do it. Okay, once we moved back to the trucks and loaded up, we headed back to Camp Darby. We were on the very far side of the training area, so the trip back took a long time, and it was very uncomfortable. We were happy when we got back around 2300. We did our sensitive items check again and began cleaning our weapons. For some reason, Charlie Company made us stay up every night in Darby until at least 0130 cleaning weapons and getting our gear out of the shed and doing other tasks. And Bravo Company, they always got 4 to 5 hours of sleep. We were lucky if we got 3, and that's not including the 20-minute guard shift that you have to do. We got down to our planning bay around 0145. Before leaving for the bay, about a quarter mile away, we posted our guard roster on the RI's door, which is basically just telling the RI, hey, this is the Ranger student that's going to be awake during what time for guard duty. We got back down to the bay, cracked open our MREs, laid out our equipment for the next day, and got to sleep about 2:15. Every night, we always chewed the fat around the burn barrel and ate our food. No matter how tired we were, we always told jokes and blew off steam. The only person who didn't was Rodney. He scarfed down his MRE in his sleeping bag and went right to sleep. Rodney was the senior man in the group in age. He was an E7, also a drill sergeant, who had been in the Ranger Regiment as a young private and then moved to the 82nd Airborne Division. He was about 5'8", and he was a smaller guy at about 165 pounds, but his rough exterior and chiseled jawline and confident but not cocky attitude more than made up for his small stature. The first time he went through the course was in the late 90s. He didn't graduate because, according to him, he got into a fight during the final days of the Florida phase and had to restart the entire course from day one. He made it all the way back through, but was kicked out of the course when the Florida instructors who remembered him from his first time deemed that he didn't deserve a tab because of his maturity issues. For him, Ranger School was simply the process of removing a very painful thorn from his side. Before he became a drill sergeant, he was the platoon sergeant for a special reconnaissance platoon in the 82nd Airborne Division. To this day, Rodney is one of the best soldiers and best leaders that I have ever met, and he was a close mentor and friend during the entire course. All right, so we've gone through the beginning part of the Darby phase, the Cadre assisted sticks and the Cadre led sticks, and in the next video, we're going to be going through the actual graded patrols, which is when the fun starts. So again, I make these videos pretty sporadically whenever I have time, so please hit the notification and subscribe. Additionally, I have been shocked at how many people have signed up, but I do write a Substack newsletter called The Distro, where I talk about the military and leadership and books and a bunch of other great stuff. There's a free version of the newsletter that you can check out. Just when you drop your email in and it asks you what kind of subscription you want, you can just click none, but you'll still get free access if you go ahead and do that. If you want full access to the archive and you want the audio read-alongs, the voiceovers, so I narrate a bunch of these newsletters, if you want that, that's also for paying subscribers. So if you'd like to do that, you're more than welcome. As a reminder, if you're in the military or if you're an ROTC cadet, you can get the paid option of the distro for free. Just sign up using a civilian email account. Make sure you click none when it asks you what kind of subscription you want. When you get that intro email, just reply to it telling me who you are, and I'll get you upgraded for free. That's not a problem. Again, a bunch of people have already done that. All right. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Rangers lead the way.